David and Todd sit on the chairs next to one another. After Dan leaves, sliding the door closed behind him, David whispers, "So, what was in the message?" "They're tracking our cell phone signals. I guess Jay finally hacked her way into my system." In Omaha, Lance has 3 heavy-duty SUVs parked at the loading dock. When Tom and Bob get to the loading dock, they see 5 of the security guards. Some of them are loading Arctic weather gear into the back of the SUVs, while others are attaching cross-country ski poles and snowshoes to the roof. Sean brings a couple of cases of beer, 2 cartons of cigarettes, and a big box of nuts, chips, and beef jerky. Lance and Tony show up with 3 heavy cases. "What's in those?" asks Chris. "Take a look for yourself," says Lance as he opens up one of the cases on the rear deck of one of the SUVs. "Holy shit, Lance. You got enough ordnance to take out a small city." "Where'd you get that?" says Chris. "Oh, I collect stuff like this. It's a hobby," says Lance with a big grin. "You know, there's a very fine line between hobby and mental illness." "Yeah, well, don't piss off the crazy person with the guns." Pulling out other equipment, he says, "Here, Sean, Chris, Jim, take these night vision goggles. You'll be doing the driving, and we may need to run without headlights for a while. There's a quarter moon tonight, and the forecast is for clear skies, so these should work fine. Here's a GMRS transceiver so we can communicate between cars." He hands them small cell phone-like radios with stub antennae. Just then, Sean shows up at the loading dock with a small case and says, "Are these what you're looking for?" Lance opens one and says, "Yep, here they are," revealing 20 XM-84 stun grenades, neatly packed in foam rubber. He takes out 4 and puts them in the back of the SUV and says to Sean, "I don't think we'll need the rest of them. Better put them back." Tom and Bob have been watching all this and now walk up to Lance, and Tom says, "Can we have the AK-47s, please? You know how to use them?" "Oh, yes." "Want a demo?" says Bob. Without waiting for an answer, Tom pulls the top rifle, checks it, reaches in, grabs a clip from the box, slaps it on, and neatly drops a crow circling 100 feet overhead. Lance says, "That's nice shooting." "Well, I always say, if you can't dazzle them with brilliance, riddle them with bullets," replies Bob. "Okay, I'm convinced. You guys can shoot. Just stop firing. The Omaha police are a little jumpy these days. Now get in the car and stop shooting birds." They ignore him and watch as Lance opens the other case, which has 10 small cylindrical plastic devices. "These are radio-controlled detonators," he says. Taking one out, he says, "You first twist the top 90 degrees to activate," as he points to the articulated head. "Then, when you push the button on this clicker," as he points to what looks like a car remote door opener, "the detonator blows. They're all set to the same frequency, and so are these remotes. Click it, and all the detonators blow at once." The clicker is gray with the logo of a flying hawk on the back. Lance has placed a red plastic tape on the back of it with the word detonator embossed in raised white letters, so no one, in fact, will mistake it for a car door opener. He puts the clicker in his coat pocket. "What are you going to do with those?" "They're way too small to do much damage," says Tom. "Put them in gas tanks. They're big enough to blow a gas tank." "Not bad," admires Tom. "Or," says Tom, "a kerosene tank." "Definitely a kerosene tank, Tom," says Bob. "Maybe even a tank of, I don't know, propane, diesel fuel, or anhydrous ammonia." "Maybe, Bob, maybe." "Okay, you 2 comics, you're having way too much fun." "Not so fast, boys," says Mary as she stomps out onto the loading dock, bundled in a great puffy bright blue parka, red mittens, scarf, a large multicolored gestured-style stocking cap with 2 floppy peaks, each with a bell, and high boots over green leggings. "Move over. I'm coming." "Geez, what are you made up as? An elf on steroids?" says Lance. "Well, you'd know," says Mary. "Well, no elves and no women. This is a rescue mission, not a shopping trip to the North Pole," says Lance desperately, knowing full well he hasn't a chance. "But you'll just be in the way," he pleads. "Sonny, you're going to need a nurse, someone who can provide caring, gentle attention to people in pain, like extracting my shoe from your fat butt. Now, are you going to shut up and get in, or am I going to start kicking ass?" Lance realizes it's hopeless. He opens the door, and Mary snatches his handgun from his pocket and hops in. Lance says, "Hey, what's with the gun?" "Geez, Lance, when I grew up, we learned to shoot before riding a bike." Lance shrugs his shoulders, grabs another gun, and, turning to the others, says, "Okay, let's get this gear stowed and on the road." After a while, everything is ready. Lance tells Tom and Bob to ride with him so they can tell him more about the layout of the farm. They get in and drive to a nearby gas station. Once loaded up on gas, the caravan of SUVs rushes over the bridge and into Iowa. Rolling east onto Highway 92, Lance says into his GMRS radio, "Remember, guys, stoplights timed for 35 are also timed for 70. They bounce along the old 2-lane state highway over frost heaves and potholes and around small drifts of snow that have blown onto the road service. Lance's cell phone rings. He looks at the caller ID, clicks talk, and says, "Hey, Jay, what do you got?" "David and Todd's cell phones have stopped moving. They are indeed somewhere just north of Fontenelle, Iowa. Here's the GPS coordinates." She text messages the numbers. "Great, got 'em. I'll let you know when I get a signal on Jack." "Later," says Jay as she hangs up. Lance's cell phone rings. It's Jay again. "Hey, Lance, Jack got to Des Moines. He picked up the rental. I got the cell ID on his car's emergency service. He's on his way. He's on I-80 right now, just coming up to Dexter, Iowa. Thanks. Keep us posted. Okay, later, says Lance as he turns and tells the others. And in the still darkness, quietly drive north to their target. Once there, they find a small grove of trees on a slight rise where they can pull over and park. They wait facing east, watching for Jack's SUV to pass by in its route south from I-80. To their southeast, they can make out the dim light from the sodium vapor lamp in the yard of the farmyard about 5 miles distant. At about 6:30, Lance calls Jay. Hey, Lance, Jack's about 5 miles north of your position and closing. Thanks, says Lance, closing the phone. Okay, he's in range. Jay's got him about 5 miles north of here, says Lance to the others. A few minutes later, in the distance, they see the headlights of Jack's SUV flickering as it bounces over the uneven frost-heaved road surface. Lance signals the other SUVs. Jack's SUV passes a few hundred yards away from them. A few moments later, Lance's vehicles power up and, lights out, begin following Jack's taillights as they bob up and down the old uneven road ahead of them. Jack's car approaches the old unused silo at the end of the farm driveway. A tree grows through the center of it. Jack turns left and drives east on the freshly plowed road. When he reaches the farmyard, he pulls his SUV into the barn, where a single naked light bulb hanging from a high rafter gives a dim view of the interior. Jack gets out and walks briskly to the farmhouse. Lance signals the others that it's time to move. The SUVs creep up the driveway towards the farmhouse and stop about a quarter of a mile away as planned. Lance and the others have pulled on their thin insulating coveralls. Inside the house, Jack says, "Where are they?" Nick replies, "In the dining room." Jack says, "Get me a whiskey and soda," as he tosses his coat on a chair in the hall and walks towards the dining room door. Nick follows Jack into the dining room. He sees David and Todd sitting on chairs around the old table with a worn, aged lace tablecloth. Jack looks David and Todd over. "So, at last, which of you is Shay?" "That would be me, and you would be?" says David. "I'm your fucking worst nightmare. You really screwed my organization royally, you prick. But now the tables have turned and I've got you and Mike's next. I wouldn't be too sure of that if I were you. Mike's got enough on you to put your fat little neck in a very tight noose. We'll see whose neck ends up in a noose," says Jack as Roger brings him his whiskey. "So these are the guys all the trouble's been about," says Jack. "You sure it's okay leaving them here in the dining room? Won't they escape or something?" "Sure, let them climb out the window. They won't even make it to the county road in this weather," replies Nick. "Yeah, I guess you're right. The dining room's okay. It's a bit cold for a walk." Jack laughs as he turns and leaves. Back in the entry hall, he says, "What have you got to eat? I didn't get anything on the plane." "You just pulled some pizza out of the oven," says Nick. "Good. Get me some and fill this up again." "Where's the heat?" says Jack as he hands Nick his empty glass. "It's on, but it'll take a while. The house was shut down when we got here. But we started a fire in the fireplace and it's beginning to warm up the living room a bit," says Nick. Well, Jack walks into the living room and heads for the chair nearest the fire. Nick walks down the central hall past the staircase into the kitchen. He pushes a few slices of pizza onto a plate and grabs a beer, which he tucks into his pocket. He gets Jack's refill and takes the plate of pizza and delivers it. Jack is asking the guys from Council Bluffs the details about how they grabbed David and Todd. He has his supper of pizza washed down with rye. One of them says, "So, Jack, what'll you do with him?" Jack says, "I'll hold him for ransom and trade him for Mike. Either I get Mike or those guys back in Omaha get two of their own back dead. I think they'll see reason. In the meantime, I want to find out what these guys know and how they did what they did. That information could be useful." Jade calls again. "Hey, Lance, I got audio from Todd's cell phone of someone saying that David and Todd were in the dining room. Can you communicate with them?" "Yeah, I don't hear anyone talking right now. I'll give it a try. Hang on, I'll text them a quick burst of Morse and ask where they are. I'll patch their audio through to you." There's a pause, then Lance hears what sounds like static, but is really Jay's Morse signals. Then he hears a whisper from Todd. "We're in the dining room." "Bingo," says Lance. "We know where they are. Hey, Jay, tell them when we come in we'll be using stun grenades, so they need to shut their eyes and cover their ears if they're untied. And tell them we'll let them know when we're coming." "Will do. Sending now." Todd whispers to David. "They can hear us. Lance is here and he'll use stun grenades, so shut your eyes when you hear the show start." David nods. At 7:10, Lance, Tom, Bob, Chris, Sean, and Tony hop out of the SUVs that are now about 1,000 feet from the farmhouse. They quickly remove the snowshoes and ski poles from the roof racks above. They strap on the snowshoes. Lance fills his pockets with 2 stun grenades and about 8 of the radio-controlled detonators. He gives the other 2 grenades to Bob. They all carry assault rifles and cell phones set to conference mode with attached Bluetooth headsets on their ears. Stealthily, they begin their trek across the snow-covered barren waste of winter towards the farmhouse. A couple of curious coyotes watch silently in the distance. The wind is now still. The clear, frigid, faintly moonlit night is silent except for the crunch of cold snow under 12 snowshoes. Lance and his squad advance on the house. High above in the starry night are the red and green flickering lights of a few passing aircraft leaving wispy, ghost-like contrails lit by the moon.